Hi, my name is Nicholas. Welcome to this week's Yin practice. For today, we'll need lots of props. So if you have a couple hard blocks, a soft block, a bolster, or any kind of a plump cushion, you may even need a couple of them. And then any kind of blanket, you could even use like a towel or something like that. And when you're ready, we're going to get started off in dangling pose, so like a forward fold type shape. And so you can bring your hard blocks with you in case you need a little more support for the upper body, and you can get there any way you like. If for any reason you don't want to start in this shape and you'd rather start in like a seat or something, then go for it and you can join up in the fold whenever you're ready to. So setting up for the fold, finding a comfortable distance between the feet, and you might imagine keeping the legs mostly extended for this one. And then use the hands to blocks for support any amount for the low back. So if you are feeling pinching or anything like that, you can lift part way. You can always bend the knees as well. But keeping the legs mostly extended to see what kind of a stretch you can find through the back of the spine. If it feels okay, let the head hang really heavy here. If you like to add weight to the head, and if you don't need the hands for support, you could also do earmuffs with the hands, and this will add some weight to the skull. So as long as everything feels quiet through the low back, and breathing here. If your hands are somewhere other than the floor or the props, you can release them and come up to a halfway lift for a moment. Pause here. Lengthen from the tailbone to the crown. Really press the heels into the floor. All right, when you're ready, step the right foot to the back of the mat. You can lower the right knee down to the floor. You can continue to use props for the hands, and it might also be helpful to prop the back knee here. So you can bring a soft block underneath the back knee. And we'll flow front and back just a few times, eventually settling into a half split shape. So with an inhale breath, you can let the pelvis go forward, lift the chest up any amount. And with an exhale breath, let the hips dip back. Moving this movement a couple of times. And whenever you feel ready to settle with the hips back and that left leg extended, then go for it. And when you're ready for that shape, you can adjust your props with the hands. If it feels good to stay hanging over that front leg, then great. If you'd rather be in a halfway lift, then go for that instead. And if you need to adjust the proportions of your shape at any point, then go for it. Notice if something's holding that doesn't have to be. Notice if you're feeling something pinching or electrical or sharp, then that might be a signal from your body to back out. All right, if you're folded, then lift yourself up first. And slowly walk the hands forward and we'll rebend that left knee. Now you can bring the left heel just a little bit further back in space, a few inches or so should do it. And if you need to adjust the right leg, then go for it. From here, we're going to start to bring the weight forward and let that left knee come ahead of the left foot. Not so much that the left heel wants to lift, but it might be pretty close. And then from here, you can bring the weight of the chest onto that front thigh if that works for you, or just inside. Hands can come along as well. Maybe you're bringing the palms a little further forward in space. And if this feels great, then stay here. If you would like a slightly different sensation, you could play with tucking the back toes and lifting the back knee. But rather than using that as a strength exercise, imagine that you're lifting the back knee so that the pelvis stretch can get a little more intense. Explore your version of the shape and breathe into it. And if at any point things feel too intense, please back out to a slightly less intense version. And when you're ready to exit, you can walk the hands back in and send the hips back a little bit. And then we'll step the left knee back to join the right. If you have a prop under the right, you can remove it. And from here, we'll take child's pose in between sides. So hips towards the heels. I'm taking the knees nice and wide apart, bringing a prop along for the forehead. Any expression you like with the arms, let the body settle into the shape. And choosing stillness, or maybe a rock of the head side to side, maybe a gentle sway of the hips. And when you're ready, we'll set that up for the second side so you can come up to a tabletop position. Awesome. This time we'll step the right foot forward, and straight away you can set yourself up maybe to pad the back knee and blocks for your hands. You can adjust the length of the stance any way you like. And making sure everything feels good here with an inhale breath, lean the pelvis forward, maybe lift the keys a little bit. And then as you exhale, send the hips back, right leg can extend. And then pulse these shapes a few times with your breath. When you feel ready to settle into your half split, then go for it. If you need to adjust the proportions at all or where the blocks are, then please do. Keeping a sense of evenness through the pelvis. You might even be encouraging that right hip back slightly and let the spine be heavy here. Your pain-free expression, breathe into whatever you're feeling. lifting up as you're ready and slowly rebending the front knee. You can slide that right heel back a few inches and then bring your weight forward, bending into the front knee. And again, it's okay to let the knee come forward ahead of the toes as long as that feels okay in your body. Maybe the hands come forward a little bit. And again, you could explore lifting the back knee up rather than for strength, for a deeper stretch through the pelvis, maybe through that left hip flexor. Well, you know about how long we'll be here, so find something that feels sustainable. You can always adjust it if needed. And if you're taking the hands further forward in space, either blocks or fingertips, adding a little more weight for the pelvis, you can let the head hang heavy. And slowly bringing the hands back in, coming up. And then right knee to join the left, and we'll set up child's pose for a second round. So maybe the knees wide or the knees together. Any props that you want to have around to find a more restful shape. And let the body settle here. And only when you feel ready to move again, bringing the hands in, coming up to find a kneeling position. So we'll set up the props for the next shape, which will be a split pose. So for this one, I suggest having your hard blocks about halfway up the mat. You can have them on a high setting. And then you can bring your bolster or whatever thick pillows you're using about to the middle of the mat, and you can adjust where they need to be. And then we'll bring the blanket out in front. This we'll use to slide that front leg forward. If you're on carpet, you may be better off just using a sock on your foot or something. If you've never done this shape before, then you can also skip the blanket altogether. The blanket's there to help you slide in and out more easily, but if you're unfamiliar with the shape, you could end up going in a little too deep too quickly. So just keep that in mind and adjust whatever you need to. So if you're coming with me, we'll start off and take the left leg forward. So step the left foot onto the blanket that you're using. And again, the bolster is about halfway up the mat, so that once we extend the front leg, maybe it'll come to rest on the belly of the left thigh. It could be between the legs, or maybe it'll be on the top of that right thigh. So take your hands to your blocks from here, and we'll start off by lifting the back knee up off the floor. Awesome. And then from here, from this kind of funky lunge, start to press the left heel to the blanket and start to slide the left leg forward any amount. Now listen to your body. It will let you know very quickly if you're in too far. And then whenever you feel ready to, you can drop that back knee to the floor, and you have your other prop nearby if you need some support for it. Now we're going to stay upright for today's version. Props, then go for it. If you need to bring in more props, then go for that. Breathe into whatever you're feeling. We are about halfway through, but don't hold this pose longer than you would like to or you feel would be good for you. If your body's giving you signals that it's time to come out, then please do. Otherwise, we're here for about 8 breaths. And as it's time to come out, we're going to start off by sliding that left heel back again, rebending the right knee as well. Now from here, I'm going to suggest downward facing dog as a release pose. If that doesn't feel at all restful for you and you'd rather come to child's pose, then go for that. You could also explore squat pose here. And if you're coming with me to down dog, you can just move your props off to the side, hands plant to the floor, and step the left leg back. Give the hips a movement here. Maybe pedaling the heels or bending the knees. And the stillness is there when you were ready for it. And stillness is there when you're ready for it. All right, from here, lowering the knees down to the floor, hips towards the heels, coming to a kneeling shape. And then we'll set that up for the second side. Note before we go in that no two sides are exactly the same. So one side will tend to feel a little more open. So as you're coming in, don't worry if the shape doesn't end up looking like the first side. Look for a similar feeling in your body. Blocks to either side of the mat, blanket out to the front, maybe soft block nearby in case you need to pad the back knee, and the bolster about halfway up the mat. Awesome. So you can start off this time. We'll set that right foot forward, right heel onto the blanket. And then your hands roughly underneath the shoulders will lift the back knee up. Ready, start to slide that right heel forward any amount. And see where you end up. If your props are giving you a hard time, just stay patient, adjust any way you need to. And when you're ready, back knee lowers. You can walk your blocks a little further closer to yourself if that helps you stay upright more. All right, as you're ready, sliding that right heel back in, rebending the left as well. And then releasing to whichever shape you like. I'm going to head to downward facing dog, but child's pose, squat, forward fold are all there for you. Whatever shape you choose, maybe find movement for a few breaths, settling into it. And then whenever you're ready, you can find your stillness. And if you're with me in down dog, lowering the knees to the floor as you're ready, hips to the heels. And from here, you can swing the legs out and lower down onto the back. And once you've come down, we're going to take one last shape, and this will be an active shape just to resettle, reset the hamstrings and the hips before we find our rest pose. So we're going to set up bridge pose. If you'd rather find the restorative shape, then once the hips come up, you can slide a prop underneath the pelvis. If you're staying with me in the active shape, you can press the palms to the floor somewhere near the hips. And then pressing the shoulders, the palms, and the feet to the floor with an inhale breath, lift the pelvis up towards the ceiling. And you can pause exactly here. If you want a shoulder stretch, you can walk the arms a little bit closer, maybe interlacing the hands. And then keep the backs of the legs really active, that place that we've been stretching out with those hamstring stretches. Now activating it just to resettle and reset. Breathe here. And then releasing the hands first, slowly lowering the spine, the pelvis back down to the floor. And check in here. If your body's asking for any last shape or movement, then take it now. Otherwise, when you're ready, you can extend the arms and the legs. Settling into any comfortable shape for your rest pose. And gently bring your attention back to the space, to the body. Find a little movement through the hands and through the feet, a rock of the head side to side. And when you feel ready, you can collect your knees into your chest, wrap the arms around the shins, and give yourself a squeeze and a rock side to side. And then from here, separate the knees, reach between them to catch hold of the feet, and we'll set for happy baby. So you can bend the knees and reach the feet like they're pointing towards the ceiling, using the weight of the arms to draw the knees a little closer to the floor, perhaps. Mindful that the low back stays quiet, you can always slide your blanket underneath if you want more support. And when you're ready, collect the legs back in center, maybe hands to the knees, and rock up and down the length of the spine, mindful of the neck. Massaging out the back here, and then when you're ready, build up a little momentum, and we'll come up to find any comfortable seated position. Maybe cross-legged or kneeling or anything else that you like. If there are any props that you want to bring in for support, then go for it. Whatever's touching the floor, gently grounding it, and lengthening the spine here, and softening anything you don't need. And taking these last few moments of your practice to check in with the body. And stay here, connect the hands at the heart. And thank you for joining me for practice today. Namaste. And thank you for joining me for Yin practice. If you have any questions, my name is Nicholas, and have a great evening.